Hey everybody, it's David R. Becker here with Becker Art, and today, this morning, I was going to go outside, but it's raining again. Of course, every time I want to go out painting plein air for you guys, it is raining. And so one of these days I'll have to go out there and just paint the rain. But anyways, we're going to be doing this scene of a woman by a window, and I thought I should do, I haven't done a figure in a while, and I've been doing all plein air buildings and interiors and stuff, so I thought I really need to practice up on my people again a little bit. So we're going to try that this morning and see how it goes. And so really, when you're doing any kind of scene, it really doesn't matter what the scene is. I still paint the same way with everything. I paint with my Becker Art 3-step, right? I do my lights, my mediums, my darks, and I look for my no tan, right, with the good value pattern. I still look for that. And so let me just go right to my tabletop and show you what I'm talking about. So here, if you look at the bottom here, look down here, over there, right there, the black and white. And so as you can see, I did a little photoshopping in there, and I sprayed a little bit of white over my edges and stuff so that things would be not quite as, dark and so hard-edged. And I'm really into that lately, is where I take my scenes and I want to make a lot of parts that are not hard-edged, and I want to show emotion. I want to show the soft edges and stuff that's like blurred, basically. And like photographers do that a lot when they blur things out. And so when you're doing your scene, I don't want everything to be like the photograph. I don't want it to be so perfect, And with watercolor, you can get really perfect with the lines. Where I noticed that with the last time I was out plein air painting with the oil painters, that they really have an advantage when it comes to being loose. We as watercolorists, when we put an edge down on a paper with a dry paper, it's a hard edge, and you get a really hard edge, and it's also more difficult to do a soft edge because you got to work wet into wet, and that is a little bit more difficult to do. But that's what I'm going to show you how to this morning. Is I'm going to try to let a lot of this just bleed away and be out of focus, and just so that you don't have to have so many details, so many hard edges. Like the window itself, I can do. I toned it down a little bit so that the window wouldn't be so dark, and because you can have it hard edge, but if you have the contrast to be less, like if this is not quite as dark and not as contrasty, then it'll feel like a soft edge and it'll stand back behind her. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to try to do a little bit of softness to it and be a little bit looser. Oil painters have the possibility of doing loose because they do brushwork. They do big brushwork, and there are some artists that are different, that don't do really thick brushwork in oils, and they do a little bit thinner, and they do the hard edges and stuff, and they get tighter. It's all depends. But the plein air painters, they're usually doing a la prima kind of thing with really thick paint and a lot of brush strokes, and I kind of like that. I really love that look where it's not all so in focus, and it looks like a painting. And so I want this to look like a painting, not like I'm copying the photograph to make it look like the photograph. I want it to be very soft-edged, and we'll go from there. All right, so we start with our Becker Art 3-step, and what's the first step is my lights. So am I going to leave it white, the background? Do I want to put some blue in there? And I want to show you what I've been doing lately. Where did I put it? So I've been grabbing a sketchbook, and I wanted to start doing some color swatches. And when I'm talking about color swatches, I'm talking about using my color. And this is the palette you see here is my plein air palette. But I'm trying to make one now that's going to be for both in studio and my plein air. And I'm going to be making it with this plexiglass, and so we're going to see how that works. So I'm trying to get my own palette, because I made this one myself. This one is lip balm containers into like a pencil tin, and so I'm going to take and do something similar to that, and so I can take my paints in and out. This one I kind of hot glued them in, but I want to be able to take them out so I can put in the colors I want. But I'm making sketches in a sketchbook, and I've got to find a better sketchbook because I'm going to put watercolor swatches in here. And I'm just going to take different colors and mix them together and see what you come up with. That way I can go through and I can do a color scheme. If I feel like I have a certain color that I want to see what's good with it, I'll practice it on in my sketchbook here. But this is more of a sketchbook with not for basically water, and so it's going to wrinkle a lot, but which is fine. But I just want to be able to have it so that I can see what colors mix together and which ones I really like. I was mixing together this Amislone brown with this ultramarine blue, and which I was thinking maybe I'll use on this, because I'm not going to go for the colors exactly what the photo is, but I like to know what colors blend together well and what they give me, basically. So I'm going to be starting this. I just started this yesterday, so I'm just going to try to do some of all my colors and just get my colors so that I can know which colors I want to use for that point. And that's one reason also I want to have a palette that I can exchange the colors, so if I don't want to use a certain color, I can bring in my other colors into the palette. All right, so you may want to try that too. It's just start making swatches of your colors that you buy. All right, so let's get going. So I'm going to use a cool background, so I am going to use a little bit of turquoise. I think I'll use some turquoise in the background. So this is turquoise. And I'm going to keep it really light. I'm still going to keep it very light, the turquoise, and so I'll put a lot of water in there. And I'm just going to make the background light cool. I'm just putting that right over, and I'm using Stonehenge Aqua 300 pound. It's not. I didn't mount it to anything, so it's going to buckle a little bit. So I'm just going to use that through there. Bring it right into her dress right away, because I want to have so it's like so vibrant and so shiny light that it's going into her dress, basically. And this is going to be a curtain. I'm not sure if that's a curtain in this shot because you really can't tell, but I'm going to make it a curtain here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that color from there, the turquoise. And turquoise is kind of like a green, and since it's going to be very warm, you know, red and green, and turquoise is kind of a green blue. It'll match good for complementary reasons, complementary colors together. So and I'm going to try to keep my white of the hair here. I'm just going to try to keep that. And it's a blue too, and I'm going to use a little bit of orange, a lot of orange actually. So blue and orange are complementary, so that's going to work out really well. And I could go to where I have a limited palette, you know, where I just use just warm colors. You can do that too, but I'm going to try to use a little bit of cool and warm. If you have any questions, and I'm not sure if anybody's here today because I finally started doing these again, so at least it'll be, like always, my videos remain for a long time. So if you are here and want to say hello or ask a question, please ask away. And so let me just see here. And so I'm just going to put a little bit of this into the hair. So these are my lights. I'm just getting my lights. And her face basically is in the dark. You know, it's a shadowed. Most of it is shadowed. But I could get a slight tone of flesh tone in there that's going to be a light first. If I can do that so that it's not just white on her face. So I can just put that in there real quickly. And so this will be the light part of her face. It's not going to be white. You can keep things white. But I'm just going to put a little bit of, jaune number 2 is a good flesh tone color for the lights. So I'm just going to throw that in there. And again, this is the light part. So this is not the shadow yet. And I don't want to put the shadow in right now. I probably could if I was doing it for myself, but for this purpose I'm going to first just give a tone of the color for my light area. And to make the material look sheer, you can put the color of the flesh through it, and that way when you put your color in, it'll pick up a little bit of the sheerness of the material, if it is sheer material. But I like to make it look like that. Make it look a little bit more sheer. Here I'm gonna put a little orange into this light, just so that's not so seem kind of pale. So I'm gonna put a little bit of orange in there, and that's gonna be the light side. Again, this is gonna dry really light, so it looks really dark right now because there's no darks to make this look light. you make these lights look very light when you put the dark hair in, and all the other parts that are dark, that'll come in a little bit. So I'll just put this right on her arm also. Again, I'm not doing, this is just to make the light part so it's not white. I'm just going to go right over it. I'm not doing the arm really perfect yet. I'm just getting a lot of these colors because the arm will reflect color into her dress, and so the dress that's light will also be this color. You know, and a lot of people who paint with watercolor paint very tightly, and so that you're going to get a lot of hard edges, which is quite okay when you want it to be very hyper realistic. Then yeah, do those little sections, but right, like I don't want that total look. I want it to be so I have more of a soft edge everywhere, and I want colors to mix and mingle together. And I'm going to do a lot of soft edges in this, but right now I'm just establishing my light colors. Because if you look, squint your eye at the black and white right here. If you look at that, squint your eye at that, and you see the light is only in the window, and on the edge of her, everything else is dark. Her dress is dark, her arms are dark, everything is dark, and that will be done as soon as I get to the point when this is dry, because this is just, again, my lights. These are my lights. And I want to color my lights. You don't have to color your lights. You can just keep it white of the paper too. But I decided to give this a little bit of color, my lights. Now, I should be waiting for this to dry. Maybe I'll take my dryer here real quickly. Or is there a part where I can do... Yeah, let me just take my dryer real quick. My hair dryer. Or my stripper. And then actually, I'm going to buy I am going to be buying one of these portable ones for plein air painting, because sometimes when you're outside and it's raining or it's really damp, your watercolors never dry, and so they do make these power strippers that are battery operated, and so you can just, it's portable, and so that's a pretty cool thing. I just noticed somebody had one at one of the plein air conventions we had, and it was pretty cool. So I'm just going to put this on really quickly. Nice thing is that these are very quiet, not too loud. And so I'm just going to get this dry really quickly. So when I go now, next I'm going to start doing my middle tones and darks, and that's where I will be able to get the soft edges and take care of basically the middle tones and the darks right away, all as one. You know, I don't need to stop and do the middle tones and then stop and do the darks. I'll just make them all together, because I do want to have some things that are going to just be blurry and out of focus. Now you can tell this is a sheet of paper not mounted, because look at that, I don't tape them down anymore, so it does have a little bit of a curve, but not enough to make it bad. All right. So let's see how fast it goes when you're using a stripper. A heat stripper. All right, so now let's go from the back forward. I like to do that with middle tones, and let me do these windows really quickly, and I'll do the background, and then go from the background right into her, basically. I'll probably keep the face, because that's going to be the hardest part. Is my drawing is really, I spend a lot of time on my drawing, so the drawing is there. I just have to then fill in the values of the face, and the eyes, nose, and mouth have been drawn, and I've even shaded it in so I know what values they have to be. So I will do that probably last. Some people like to do it first so they can see that they did it okay and bring it together with the rest of the body, but I'm just going to go from the background first, get the background done. And for these windows, I know they're kind of a brownish color. This is my purple. So you got to stop using two different palettes, because you don't realize where your colors are. And I've been using my my plein air palette for the last month, and so I'm very, and I'm using them outside, so I know exactly where everything is. But when I came back and did the one the one paint along list, I forget where on my interior studio palette, I forget where my colors are. So see how I'm going to go, and just, these are kind of hard edged, and that's okay. Now I'm going to go around her hair, because her hair is light right there. And so I put down a wash of the imidazolone brown. This is a imidazolone brown, which is a brown, but I don't want it to be brown. I want it to have a little bit of that blue that I just put in. So I'm going to take a little bit of this. This is Vertidere blue, and it's going to make it kind of purpley, but not too heavy because I don't want it really, really dark. I want this to be like it's like being engulfed by the lighting of the window. I can go into the curtain, and that's fine. I can also use a little turquoise in there too. Why not put a little turquoise in there? Oh, I made this one too wide now. That's okay. I stop. I'm using a 1 inch or 3/4 inch flat. When I do like flat things, like objects that are like buildings and stuff like this, I use a flat more than a round because look, I can just go straight across with one brush stroke. And I find that to be very easy to do. Go all the way down. I'll just do all the way down. And I'm trying to make this wet so that when you put in the extra pigment, it just floats on top. I don't care how small it is that you're working. Use enough water then so that this pigment is floating in here. You can add extra pigment in there too. And it'll look very clean. And I've noticed that one thing about professionals, their work is clean, very clean, where it does not gone over once, and if they do go over the twice, they make it so that it's very cleanly. It's very cleanly done. So let's just put this in here right away. Let me use a bigger brush. That's too small a brush to. So now I'm just going to take a lot of water, take a little bit of that imidazolone brown, kind of a purpley brown, with the turquoise, and just bring this down. And realize again, always as when you're doing watercolor, it's going to dry 20% lighter, so make it 20% darker than you want it to be. A little bit more of that turquoise in the brown. I'll make it look like material by just going over, like it's wrinkled a little bit. And this area, top parts are light. And this will get this edge of my arm done already. So I'm just going to go to the edge. Alright, just a little bit darker. I can get it really dark on the edge, and I can use some, maybe a little bit of this purple, maybe a little bit of black. Let's put a little black in there. Let's just make it dark. Underneath here too, maybe a little bit darker. It's all about how much pigment you're using on your brush, how far you want it to float. This is all wet right now, so I can keep it wet and then just work the pigment into the wetness. And I kind of use it as a palette. You know, I don't mix here, I just mix on here. And I can see how much pigment I have on there, and so if I feel I need more, just pick up a little bit more pigment. Don't pick up water in your brush though. Everybody tends to always want to put their brush into the water and just go for the pigment that you have on here. And I'm using pure pigment now. See, I'm just dipping in there. That's pure, and I just have a damp brush. And then I can easily put it onto my paper because my paper is wet. I don't need to have water in my brush to make it go onto the paper and float. It's already going to float because my paper is wet. Here I'm going to use some pure blue, turquoise. Alright, so see, I mean, this is blurry, it's out of focus, and this is going to be hard edge, which is fine. When I go in later, I will, let me just go with my round brush here real quick. I have to go inside here and get inside here so that matches this, because when the arm is on one side and the dress on the other, I want that to match. This and this I want to match. So Just going to put that all together as one wash. It is hard edged again. See how this is hard edged, but I can, when I'm doing my next wash, I can soften on top of that when it's dry, and it'll be fine. Give me a little bit of softness to it. All right, now this part can be a little bit darker, and this over here is a little bit darker too. And that is going to be lighter than the hair, so I can go into the hair. I'm going to give this a little bit more orangey color. So basically I'm going with orange, like an orangey color and blues, so that'll be complementary. Of course she's going to have red hair, so I might as well go in right into there with my red, orange. Alright, so I guess now we can just do this whole part over here and just get right into her dress. And I always look for parts on the body, like her dress, where can I stop and get a hard edge where it's not going to look like it'll be a hard edge anyways later on, and it's like the curvature of the V in her dress. So I go right to that part. And so I'm just going to wet the whole background now. I can even wet right into this, that's fine. I can make that darker later, this part. I'm just going to go right and wet everything quickly first. Right into her arm, just wet everything nice and evenly. I could also use pigment in there right away, but I'm just going to wet this. And now pick up your thick amount of pigment. And now I'm getting my background, so let me pick up a huge amount of pigment. Midazone brown, my violet, my black. How about some Prussian blue? Just make it dark. See how nice and dark that is? That's a lot of pigment in there, but not enough to make it stop though when it's in the wet wash. It'll stop a little bit, but the thicker I make it, the less it's going to run into the other part here. But it's going to give me a nice soft edge though, which is what I want. I want a nice soft edge. And if I look at it and I don't like the color, I do that right now. I change the color right away. Let's say I want it warmer. I just put that right on top of there and use my paper as a palette. Go right into her. And this will go right into the hair, but let's just get this done first here. Let's get a really nice hard edge there. Let me use this Midazone brown, really thick. It's not thick enough. There's too much water in my brush, so take your brush and get rid of the water by tapping it onto your towel. I use my towel on my tabletop. Mixing a really dark here now. I want this to be really dark. The problem most watercolors have is that they always use way too much water. I mean, you want enough water so everything's floating, but you also want it to be so that you can control it. You got to be able to control it, and it's got to be floating. And now I don't care what her color of her dress is yet. I just want to get it dark first, and then I want to make it a red dress, and so I can put that right in there after I put in the other color. And then I can also put it back here because it'll reflect. I went right over her arm because I want this to first be just like a middle tone. Like I said, I'm doing it right up to the top of her dress here, and so that's a hard edge where I can stop. And the rest I want to have clean. I want a clean wash. If nothing else, you got to make your washes clean. And I can always go darker, and so I don't feel like I need to get exact darkness right now. But if I get a nice wash, I may leave it that way, depending on what it looks like when it's dry. Or I may have to go back over it totally. And let's get a little bit of this turquoise in here too. Look at that. Ooh, just floats right in there. Isn't that cool? You can put opaque colors on top of transparent colors. That's an opaque color. But it's going to bleed in there really nicely because it's floating. And it's just going to kind of be a really nice wash in there. And I can also do that with the side of her dress maybe. Like this side that's away from the light, I'll make a little bit of blue in there. And then on the other side, I'll make it even a little bit warmer. So I'm going to wet it as I go along, just wet as I go along. And this part of her arm is, if you squint your eye and look at the light black and white right here, this one right there, the black and white, look at how this is light. And so I'm going to keep that light. It's almost blurred by the lens of the camera. You know, it's not, that wouldn't really happen if you looked at it with your, you know, with your eyes. It's not going to be like exactly like you see it in the photograph. So let's make this a little bit redder, her dress. Good morning, Maria. Anybody questions? Anybody got questions, or is I'm just not seeing it? Oh, hey. Oh, there you guys are. Hey, Gina. Hey, Karen. Wish you guys were a little farther down. And so I'm just going to go in here now and just make this. See how there's not that much detail in this whole section over here on this side? It's pretty much just all bled together, right? But that's what I want. I want it to bleed it together. I don't need to see exactly what's going on here. I just need that dark, and if you look at my black and white, it's all just dark, and so I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with trying to make it look dark. And there's a light here, but that's just for my lighting. See if I put my hand right there, how it just blocks it. So let's put this. There is an edge to the dress. I can do that. And then looks like here's a little bit darker. And I'm going to take a round brush to sculpt the figure. I will sculpt it with darks and thick pigment. Like right here. Looks like it's a little dark right here. And then there's that light blurring it. And there I'm going to do some really bright red in the sun here. And this is no different if I'm painting outside. You know, if I'm doing plein air, I'm still working light to dark, and all those things are the same. You know, the way to paint watercolor is all the same, inside, outside. I don't change that. I mean, I would work the same way. If this lady was posing right where she's at, I'm going to do the same if I'm using my other easel. I'm using it. You know, I don't paint differently in that way. Though I am having it flat, and when I work outside, I work up and down a little bit more. So now I'm sculpting. I'm basically like a sculptor right now. I'm just going to put my darks in getting the shape of the dress, of her body. And trying to show my shadows. Putting some of the cool colors on this side. Because it's wet, and so I can float other colors in there. Anywhere it's a little bit. So I don't need just to use red through the whole thing. I can use the red over here where it's bright, and then I want to make it dark. I'm using black and imidazolone brown with some purple, and then her arm is right here, so I'm going to make the edge of it dark, but then I'm going to take in some orangey color for her arm. Some dark colors. It's really weird because I've been learning a lot from oil painters, even though I'm a watercolorist, but seeing how they work and seeing how they put it on thick makes me learn how to use my watercolor a little bit thicker so I can get these edges. This is still working wet in the wet. I'm working wet and wet, but I'm finding the edges. I'm making soft edges. I'm making it thick so it gets dark in one wash. Then I don't have to go back in there. See, I'm gonna just make things dark right away, and it's still floating the pigment, so that gives it a good chance to give me a soft edge. There's a hard edge because that's dry. And then we got. There's like a belt here, but I'm not gonna. I want this to be a little bit out of focus, so I don't need to have everything in there perfect. I want things out of focus, so you don't want to have it so perfect. And this part, working wet in the wet, is something you got to practice. You got to learn how to be able to do this. Work into a wet wash and use thick enough pigment so that it's not bleeding all over the place and out of control. Because I'm working in control of my paint and getting soft edges. And again, this is dark. The light happens to be blurring right on there. Let me just move this light a little bit. It is just blurring crazy. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right, so this can be darker, but see, now it's at a point where, oh, I just dropped some little water pebbles on there. So this part is drying lighter than I wanted, but I have to let it dry now so that it's fine. But if I want it darker, I just need to let it dry and I'll re-wet it. You know, I'll respray it and I'll make it a little bit darker. Same thing with this side. Look at how light this side got, because it's, you know, you can keep it that way if you make everything in relation to that darkness. But I want it darker. But we'll keep it for that for now. Let's just go right into the face now. And when I'm doing the face, I'm gonna take my small round brush because I'm doing details basically, and it go from the face right into the hair. The hair is the darkest, right? It's black, so I'm gonna do that after I do the face because the face is lighter, and you always work light to dark. And I will wet the face as I go along, basically, because I need to. I still want soft edges, and so I wet the forehead, and I'll pick up a nice darker color here to get my shadows. Get my shadows done. A little bit of orange, a little bit of jaune number 2. Because I need to have like a flesh tone, but I need to go underneath here, get a shadow. It goes across her forehead here. And then her eye sockets are, this one is darker, so I'm going to go right in there. I'm going to go right through her eyes because, you know, there's no white. There's no white. There is white to the eyes, but they're not white. Not pure white. They're just lighter. And so I try to get all the values right now. Try to get everything done with one wash. Try not to go back over and over. I know there's some people that like to go over and over, which is okay, but the least amount of brushwork makes the watercolor look the best. If you can get everything done in one wash, that would be the best look because it's nice and fresh. It looks clean. And again, watch out putting water on your brush, because every time you put water on your brush, it's gonna make more water into the surface, and that makes your watermarks. And you definitely don't want watermarks in this lady's face. This in here is a little bit darker. I'm putting a little bit more orange underneath here too. Shadow over here. Again, go right over her eyes. I'm going to get the side of her nose light, because I remember that was what I did first. I put the color that I needed there first. And so now it's the right color, right, of light. Go right over the white of the eyes. And I have a little bit of this brownish color in here too, with a little bit of warmth. And so I'll put a little bit of orange in this color. And starting to dry here, so I got to make sure it's all nice and evenly wet in the wet. And that's the big thing, is evenly. Work evenly with the wet wash, because that's what gives you the soft edges and it makes it nice and even. It's when you start not having it even, where it's like a little bit more water in some spots than others, that's where it gets dangerous, because you can't make things even. Your washes will not float evenly. So it's all about keeping your washes evenly wet. Around her eyes a little bit darker, so I'm going to take a little bit dark here. This is all wet now, and I'm trying to keep it evenly wet so that it gives me a nice even wash floating pigment. And I'm just going to go right over the eye again, maybe leaving a little bit of light right there. But watch out for that though, because if you keep it too light, the white of the eyes, it looks very odd keeping white in the eye. But it's not super white, it's just a little bit of lighter part. And you can actually rub that out too. She has dark eyes, so I can just go right in there and get that part too. And then right next to her nose here, it's a little bit darker. And watch out that parts don't dry either and give you a hard edge where you don't want a hard edge. Her chin down here, the bottom of her lips are dark. And it looks odd that she doesn't have hair right now, but that's all, you know, it's all good. It's all good. You have to do it all step by step. I'll do her features later. Right now I'm not doing her features, I'm doing the shadows on her face. That's what I'm firstly looking for. The features will come as you do them slowly and carefully to show the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Right now I'm doing the whole face and giving you the shape of the whole face for the lights and darks of the shadows. And her chin down here is a little bit light on this side. Go right into the background. And down here, her neck is going to be a little bit darker, right underneath her neck here, a little bit darker. I like to put an orange in there because it reflects the red of the dress, so maybe even a little bit of red down here. So it reflects the dress. And then there'll be hair that's going to be sticking down here. And now her chest here is pretty dark. And this other part is dry already, so I can go right over that a little bit. And stick with the same colors. Don't shift around with different colors as you're doing this, because it'll look like a rainbow in her face then. So you want to keep the same colors going. This is going to be dark here, so I can go right into that. Now I'm going to sculpt that area and make parts darker and lighter as I'm going here. Do a little bit warmer. Again, this will be really dark. It'll go right into the hair. Side of her neck. The side of her neck right here, down to her, whatever that you call that little hole right here. Then this is part of her neck too, and her shoulder, and her I need to make it a little bit darker because right now it looks dark, but once it dries it'll look very red, and so I'm going to go in there with a little more darks. And see, take a little bit more time when it comes to doing this part, because this is your center of interest, basically your face, and so you want to again get that right. And again, trying to get it with one wash is a little bit difficult, but it can be done by keeping things wet. There's going to be a hair right there, so I don't have to worry about that spot. And her hair, let's give her some cleavage. Spark me a little bit darker. So as you can see, rarely do I put my brush into the water again. The water's down here, so I'm using my water to blend. And while it's still wet, you try to get all this going while it's still wet. And while I'm doing this, I might as well go and get the hair right away because it's almost black. Well, it's red. It's going to be red, but it's out of shadow, so I'm going to use a black with the red. And I'm just going to go in there and get it really dark. And this is wet, so I can it'll blend itself. And there are parts of this hair that will be light, and so it's going to keep that white for now. Get the edge of her blouse here. Look at how dark that is. But that's what I want. I want it to be that dark, so then the lights will stand out. And let's do the opposite side too over here. I've taken, what is this, purple? This is a, what is this color? That's a brown. I'm not sure what kind of brown it is. Or is that neutral tint? I think that's neutral tint. And then a little purple. I'll put some red, put in there. And now just go in here. And all the hair on this side is all dark. There's no light shining on it, so it's going to make it all dark. And I didn't wet it first because I'm wetting it as I go along here, and I'm going to get a hard edge over there because it's dry paper. But that right there is going to be hard-edged, dry paper. Now as I'm wetting it, I can float more pigment in there, different colors. If I want to get that look of softness, now I'm going to take pure red and orange because I do want to have it show that it is a redhead. And so I'm going to make some orange right there where it starts transferring from light to dark. And then right here. And this is fine detail, but that's okay. You can do that now because I'm at that stage right now where I need to get in there and you're showing more detail anyways. And then it's still all wet. So I've got I can blend that into this part because it's still wet. And so later on when I go with a really dark over here, I'm going to bring that right into there and blend it all together so it just feels like it's all together. Let's see if you guys got any questions because it's farther up here. Definitely let me know if you got questions, guys. Let's do her arm now. Her arm is dark. It's reflecting the red dress. This side of the arm is dark. Blends right into that part. Use a little orange in there. And when you're not quite sure what you're doing, look back at the photo and see what's going on. That always will help you if you got the reference, or if you're working plein air. Look back at what you're painting, and then just see. You know, go, okay, that's dark in my photo, or that's dark in my vision of the plein air piece. Then it looks like this gets dark. And don't always let your painting look like it's a good painting. I mean, it goes through the ugliest stages. I mean, where you don't have your darks in there and it looks really weird that certain things look kind of odd. But leave it. It's not done. You work your lights and sometimes your middle tones, it doesn't make it look right because it's not there yet. You don't have your darks in there yet. You don't have certain things to make it look more detailed or whatever. So, you know, be patient. Be patient with your paintings. I know some people feel like they need to have their painting look good the whole way through, and that's just doesn't happen. It's gotta go through its uglies. And her hand. I'm gonna bring this right down into this part. When I can bring washes together, that's the best. You know, when you can bring washes together and make them work together. All right, so I've got my darks. The side of her face is going to have to be then a little bit darker. But that's now that I have this pretty much all covered. Now I'm going to go for the darkest darks and just get this all together. So I'm going to take a wash right down the middle. And I know that it seems like you shouldn't go back over a wash. Yes, but you can, because I didn't get it dark enough the first time. And a lot of times that happens. You don't, and that's actually good because you can then come in here and know what colors you used here. And I'm just going to kind of get a lot of pigment. And I'm going to not wet it first. I'm going to wet it as I go along. So I'm going to get my really dark here. And I'm just going to take loads of pigment. And it's floating because I'm putting water down with the pigment. It's just not wet this time first. And I'm going to bring it right into the hair. And I try not to rub too much. I just try to get this all together as one area. See, now I'm just going to go right in here and make this all come together as one area, so it's not separated so much. And it'll still have a fresh look because I'm going over it evenly and I'm letting it all float still again. And I'll still put some of the same colors that I used before too. Remember, I put some turquoise in there. That's a little bit too thick a turquoise. But see how I can put it in there because it's wet in the wet. I'm not sure why I did that. That shouldn't have been done. What you do have to watch out for is using too much water. That's the big thing, is watch out how much water you use on these things. Because if you use too much, then it picks it up, and then you get rid of it because it's soaking back into your brush. See right there? It soaks it up and then brings it up and takes it away. Use a little bit smaller brush so I can pick up a little bit more pigment. And it won't pick it up if you use enough pigment and let it float back down. And I'm always trying to keep it so that it is soft edged, wet in the wet. Go right in here. And this kind of goes right down to her clavicle. Hold on, it went back down. Good morning, Sherry. Work your pigment. Work it into the water. You gotta put more pigment in here. It's a little bit trickier when you're doing a person because every brush stroke maybe shows a shape, and so if I want to keep it loose, I got to make the shapes look like they're just put down in one wash, but they're not because I couldn't get it in the first wash or whatever. But so now I'm going to go in here and get the hairs a little bit. Eyebrows. Now I made it too thick. And this is practice for me. It's not going to be probably perfect because I haven't done a figure in a while, and so it's always just fun to experiment and try and see how you can get stuff going here again. When I get too tight, that's why I love loosening up and just throwing water over the area and just get it back to not so tight. And I'll make this a little bit more red. Yeah, what I'm really trying to learn to do a lot of is loosening up, trying to make my watercolors not so tight, not so perfectly lined, trying to do more of the wet in the wet, where I can make it look soft edged, things soft edged. And sometimes you can do it afterwards, sometimes you do it in the beginning. See how you can just go back over things and make things soft edged and bleed them together. And look at that, all those things down there. Make her dress a little bit darker. And also, like I'm saying, try to get it first wash. But if you don't be scared to go back over and re-wet things and go back in and try it again, or get darker. You can go back in. It's not impossible to go back in. And actually learning how to do that, going back in, is a good thing, because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I go back into areas, because watercolorists don't have to get everything at once, though that's what everybody thinks. Is like, oh, you have to get everything in one wash. But look at how many times I went over certain areas. You can go back over as long as you wet it, let it float, use use the pigment, use the water to let it float again, so that your pigment is floating. That's how you make it look soft-edged. Soft edge and out of focus and all those things that I've been talking about. And that blue, I like that blue in there a lot. But where do I put it? Do I put it here? Fun stuff. Now let's go into our, this area and make that also dark. See how when I just put that one brush stroke over, how it just makes everything look so much better, because it brings everything together as one big wash. You know, and that's what's important. And what's going to be most important is her face. And I haven't gotten to her features yet. So once I get her features in there, they'll look really tight. You know, look really perfect. Now that's going to be a little bit darker too, but I'm going to wait for that to dry. And so let me go down here. Let's get some of these darks in here now. And while it's wet, it's picking up the darks in the room, so it's hard to tell. But the more you work and the more you realize how dark things are, you start learning what's dark and what's going to dry lighter, and how much pigment did you put down to make it that dark. Look at that wash. See, I'm using a lot of black. I'm using a lot of Mislin brown, some purple in there. So there's a lot of pigment in this. But if you have enough water, it's still floating. You know, it's floating. And see, it's creating its own soft edge. And so you don't have to make the edge soft. It automatically makes itself soft. And let's go in here now. Let's make this a little bit darker. And I like when things are not perfectly, you know, really sharp. And that's the one thing I love about oil painters. Nothing's really sharp when it comes to plein air. I mean, there are some that do studio paintings that are very sharp, but they just have that alla prima look of a brush stroke and stuff that I really love. And you can do both, you know, I mean, you can do both things. Now this is all wet, so I can't go in there. So let's do her face and we're almost done. And I didn't use masking fluid for the white that I get back, because I may want to get some white back. And I'm just going to use white paint, you know, for that. And again, I forgot to bring in my Pro White, or my Dr. Martens white that comes in a jar. Those are really kind of fun to use, because you can get a really white. It's like, if you want to get really dark, use black, and then put some color into it, like a Prussian blue or a phthalo blue. Put that right into the black, and it's amazing the darks you can get with that. All right. So this blue now looks kind of out of place, but I'm going to leave it for now. And what did I say I was going to do? Oh, her face. Let's do her face, get her face done, and then we're pretty close to time out, 5 minutes. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there, give her some red lips. And this is where you take your time and draw exactly what you see in the photo. Little highlights. Put some eyebrows. Make your eyebrows nice and dark. Looks like this goes down here, the side of her neck. We'll do her eyes are black, are dark, so I'm doing it pretty quickly, so it's not going to look perfect, but it should look good enough. A little hair right here and there. I noticed I didn't give her any earrings. I probably should put an earring because it's nice to have a little, or a necklace to make a little bling, a little things bright. That's kind of fun to do. It's really dark right here. Any questions, guys? Let's see, any questions? I don't think so. Because they're very quiet today. Now, her dress, I could give a pattern or do something to also like spatter or use a stencil on it or do little dots. I can go like this, little dots here and there. You can do that. Now I'm going to take some white, take some pure white, which is, my white is really dirty. Let me just clean it out first. And then try to pick up some, that's where I like using that bottled white. It's just, or put in fresh white. And where I use it, where things are going to be bright, you know, where I'm going to get things back where they're hitting light. Let's have her head here. And her shoulder especially, she has a little bit of white here. Some of her hair. On the side of her dress right here, we're going to get a little bit of white. And I kept some of it. Oh, she has a little bracelet on, and so you can put a little bit of light on her bracelet. Her hand is too light down there. I'm going to have to definitely make that darker. So just make it so you can see the side of her hand. It doesn't have to be super detailed or anything like that. And look at how her face is way too light. Her face is just sticking out like a sore thumb. So I'm going to go in there for the last thing. 1 minute to do this. I'm just going to go over with some color. A little bit of orange here. And just go in there and get the darks. Because her whole face is just too bright, too white, too light. And so just going to go over there with the one brush stroke. Because the light doesn't look light until you get the darks looking dark. See how that just by doing that, by just simply going over again now and getting the darks to look a little bit darker, a little bit lighter. And a lot of people will be afraid of doing that, but if it doesn't look, if it's just standing out like a sore thumb, then you definitely got to do this. You got to go back in and get your lighting correct. And even this side of the face is a little bit darker. And don't be scared when you're practicing. Just do it. Just get in there and make it work. because I mean, I'm practicing, and so you just want to make it look right. So try it. Don't worry about wrecking it. Worry about trying to make it look the correct values and get all that stuff done right, correctly. And if you didn't get it the first time, that's okay. Just try to do it again the second time. And squint your eye at the picture, look at your painting, and see if you got the same values. And don't look at on the screen. Look at, because you're seeing what I'm seeing on the screen, but I'm looking at it where on the screen makes things too contrasty, anyways, and so it's best to look at it originally. Don't. All right, I think that's about it, right, guys? 9:31. All right, I'm gonna keep it at that. And look at that white of her eye, how bright it's sticking out. See this little white right there? You gotta get rid of that. There you go. And even her teeth are so vibrantly bright. But I think it's enough to show you what I'm talking about. And now this looks really burnt out on my screen. But if I see how if I put my hand over there, the lighting, I got to readjust my lighting. I think it just came back and I don't have it. But this is okay to me right now here in my studio. It may not look right on the screen as much as it does, but I hope you learned a little bit about how to do a figure in a window. All right, guys. We'll see you next Thursday, and we'll be doing another paint along. I'm here back, and so we'll be able to do a lot of stuff, more stuff now. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your Sunday, guys. Bye-bye.